Finn and Cole read the exact same article, the same week, sent by the exact same friend in the exact same group chat. Same words, same paragraphs, same advice, sitting on the same screen. They walked away having learned completely opposite lessons. The article was about lifestyle creep, the same idea we covered a few videos back. The quiet way spending rises to match income without anyone deciding it should. Straightforward, not controversial, not even particularly complicated. Finn read it and spent the next 3 months cutting things that were never actually the problem, skipping dinners with friends, canceling a subscription that brought real joy for $11 a month, quietly spiraling into a kind of anxious restriction the article never once recommended. Cole read the same article and thought, more or less, yeah, that's definitely other people. Closed the tab and changed nothing at all despite being, by any honest measure, the exact reader the article was written for. Same information, same source. Two completely different outcomes, neither of which was the one the article was actually trying to produce. Here's why. And it has almost nothing to do with reading comprehension. There's a well-documented finding in psychology called motivated reasoning, described extensively by the researcher Ziva Kunda. The core idea is that people don't process new information neutrally, like a computer scanning for facts. They process it through the lens of a conclusion they're already, often unconsciously, motivated to reach, and then experience the whole thing as if they arrived there objectively, from the evidence alone. Kunda's research made a specific, important distinction that's easy to miss. This isn't the same thing as simply lying to yourself, or ignoring facts you know are true. People engaging in motivated reasoning genuinely believe they're being fair and accurate. They search their memory for reasons, rules, and prior experiences that support the conclusion they're motivated to reach. And they do it so smoothly, so automatically, that the entire search feels like neutral evaluation rather than what it actually is, evidence gathering with the verdict already quietly decided in advance. Finn has spent years quietly identifying as the careful one, the friend who worries about money, who double-checks receipts, who feels a flash of genuine anxiety at any sign of financial looseness. That identity didn't start with this article. It's been running in the background for years. So when Finn read a piece about lifestyle creep, the information didn't land as neutral advice. It landed as confirmation of something Finn already, quietly, believed at all times: that danger was close, that vigilance was justified, that cutting back was always the safer move. The article became fuel for an identity Finn was already living inside of, not new information Finn was evaluating from scratch. It's worth noticing what Finn actually cut, because none of it lined up with anything the article described. The $11 subscription wasn't lifestyle creep. It was a small, stable expense that had been the same price for 2 years, bringing genuine enjoyment every single week. Cutting it didn't address the thing the article warned about. It just gave Finn's already anxious identity something concrete to act on, a way to feel like the warning had been heeded, even though the actual behavior the article was describing was happening somewhere else entirely, unexamined. Cole's identity runs in the opposite direction. Bad with money, said almost as a joke, repeated enough times over the years that it stopped being a joke and became something closer to a settled fact about who Cole simply is. And here's the strange part: that identity, uncomfortable as it sounds, is also protective, in its own way. If you've already decided you're just bad with money, then an article describing exactly your own spending pattern doesn't feel like useful, actionable information. It feels like more evidence of a thing you've already accepted and stopped trying to fix. Cole's brain filtered the article not to protect against anxiety, the way Finn's did, but to protect against the exhausting work of trying to change something that identity had already quietly filed as unchangeable. Same article, two completely different identities standing guard at the door, each one deciding, before a single sentence was even finished, what that sentence was allowed to mean. This is why financial advice so often fails to actually change behavior, even when the advice itself is completely correct. The information was never really the bottleneck. Almost everyone already has access to more accurate financial information than they act on. The bottleneck is which identity the information runs into on the way in. And identities are remarkably good at editing incoming information until it confirms whatever they already needed to be true. Here's what makes this particularly hard to catch in yourself. In the moment it's happening, motivated reasoning doesn't feel like bias from the inside. It feels like clear thinking. Finn didn't feel like an anxious person overreacting to an article. Finn felt like someone finally taking their finances seriously. Cole didn't feel like someone dismissing useful advice. Cole felt like someone being realistic about their own limitations. Both of them were having a completely sincere experience of reasonable thought, while their actual conclusion had been decided well before the reasoning ever started. So here's the actual test worth applying. The next time a piece of financial advice lands in front of you and produces an immediate, confident reaction in either direction, ask yourself a specific question. Would I have reacted this same way if a stranger with no history, no identity I already have opinions about, had said the exact same sentence? If Finn's answer is genuinely yes, the caution is legitimate. If Cole's answer is genuinely yes, the dismissal is legitimate. But if the honest answer is that the reaction came from who's saying it, or from which version of yourself it seems to confirm, rather than from the actual content of the advice, that's the signal worth paying attention to, not the advice itself, but the speed and certainty of your own reaction to it. Speed is actually the easiest tell to catch in real time. Genuine evaluation of new information tends to feel at least a little effortful, a little uncertain, because real thinking involves weighing something you haven't already made up your mind about. Motivated reasoning feels instant, and it feels obvious, because the mind isn't doing the work of evaluating, it's doing the much faster work of confirming. If a reaction to financial advice arrives fully formed, with total certainty, before you've even finished reading the sentence, that speed itself is worth treating as a clue. Finn eventually noticed the pattern by writing down, for 2 weeks, every piece of financial advice that produced an immediate urge to restrict something, and asking, honestly, whether the specific thing being cut was actually a problem, or just felt like one because cutting something, anything, was what Finn's identity always reached for under any kind of financial stress. Most of it turned out to be the second thing. Cole noticed a different pattern: that "I'm just bad with money" had been doing an enormous amount of quiet work for years. Not because it was true, but because believing it meant never having to try something and risk finding out it didn't work. The identity wasn't protecting Cole from failure. It was protecting Cole from the possibility of effort followed by disappointment, which felt, somehow, worse than just staying exactly where things already were. Neither of them fixed this by reading better advice. They fixed it by noticing which identity was doing the reading, before deciding whether to trust what it concluded. This matters beyond just Finn and Cole's specific article, because the same pattern runs underneath almost every piece of financial advice either of them, or anyone, ever encounters. The advice itself is rarely the variable that changes outcomes. Most good financial advice has existed, unchanged, for decades, freely available, repeated constantly, and yet behavior barely moves for most people who read it. What actually varies, person to person, is which identity greets that advice at the door and whether that identity's job, on that particular day, is to protect itself from risk or protect itself from effort. If this made you think differently about your own instant reactions to money advice, subscribe, because we'll keep telling these stories the psychology first, the money second, the same way we always have. Same honest stories, same simple truth. See you in the next one.